at this wine tasting, I got blacked out drunk and came to apparently at a surprise party at my house, and that was the whole reason I had to leave. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
Wow.
It wasn't even like 3 o'clock.
Were you able to enjoy the party?
Yeah, and I went out that night and had fun. I had,
holy shit.
I had some assistance,
of course,
but
you remember it.
I remember that I was probably awesome.
You were a better dancer probably at that time.
even without alcohol, and I'm always the best dancer in the room. Like cutting. If I'm there, I'm going to be the best. No, I'm joking. Not really.
Good cutting enhances the quality of good meat. In his way, the meat cutter is an artist. Poor cutting results in an inferior piece of meat, regardless of quality.
Oh, so does this mean today's your birthday, David?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Happy birthday, dude.
Thanks.
How old are you?
34.
Right on. So were you 1983?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Yeah, it occurred to me that I don't know how old Travis is either. I was 84 birthday, so I'm right there. Mm-hmm. 1984. 83. You're 83? Mm-hmm. We're all like the same age. That's crazy. I was like thinking one of us was going to be 10 years older or 10 years younger than the other.
That would mean one of us would look like shit. Or two of us would look like shit.
Well, we all look like shit, let's be frank.
Yeah, I'm feeling like
yeah, I look great.
I definitely look good.
I lost 30 fucking pounds.
That's huge, man.
You did. That's like six ground beef chubs just strapped to your chest. Hey, Travis, David, and Ryan. So I was listening to your podcast from a little ways back. It was the questions and answers involving sausage making tips. And I heard you say that now a lot of the places that you work don't hire entry-level butchers. I plan on going to a school close where I live that actually has a 9-month meat cutting course. At the school, they teach you how to break down beef, pork, lamb, poultry, game, and fish. Now, I know I can get it all paid for through a grant, but I was wondering if it would be worth my time and if it'll help me out in the future. Either way, I just wanted to let you know I think you're doing an awesome job. I am newly married, have a 1-year-old daughter. About 1 year ago, I got into a car accident resulting in my back being messed up. I've not been able to work or find a job that would take me because of all my doctor's appointments and physical therapies. They'll be doing a procedure on my back to numb the nerves in my back, and I will probably continue to get that for the rest of my life. Before the car accident, I gained love for consumer meats. I grew up in the restaurant industry, cattle reservation, and wanted something new, so I decided to become a meat cutter. But as I have said before, past events have prevented me from that. Listening to your podcast helps me stay positive and excited to get going to school. Again, thanks for your work. Man, what a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
I think when those like community colleges and vocational schools have meat cutting courses, I think that's fucking awesome. I think it's a good trade, and I appreciate that there's people can pursue that side of it, or that avenue if they want to.
If he can get a grant, that sounds great. He mentioned he might be able to get a grant for going to school, and
yeah.
I think the only problem with going to courses like that is the cost, right? So if you can get a grant, shoot, man, you could probably glean a lot of important info from a course of some sort. Yeah,
I think. So when I first got into the restaurant industry and wanted to work in a kitchen, I did not go to culinary school, and I just got a job as a dishwasher. And I remember that the first chef that I ever worked for, when I knew that I wanted to move on and kind of work my way up through the ranks, and I asked him, I said, Khalil, like, what do I need to go to school? What do I need to do to make myself a more attractive candidate to get jobs that maybe outpace my skill level so that I can continue to rise up? And he said, the first thing that I do when I get applications is I look to see if they've gone to culinary school. And when I find all of the applicants that have gone to culinary school, I immediately take that stack of papers and throw it directly into the trash. Because he said that he didn't want to retrain people who already thought they knew what they were doing, but really didn't have any practical experience and were going to be very difficult to retrain. He'd rather have somebody fresh. So what do you think, Travis? Would you feel that? Would you have? What's your attitude on hiring As far as, if you looked at somebody's resume and they had 9 months at a community college cutting meat, would that entice you or would that deter you?
Working with whole carcass, they may not know every aspect, but if you certainly know how to break down, it would be beneficial working for me. But like I tell a lot of people who end up working for me that we're only breaking a couple days a week. We're only cutting a couple days a week. It's very mechanical. If you're good at hams and you aren't good at something else, you won't be doing that something else. You're going to be doing the hams. My goal is to make money, and mechanizing kind of the machine that I work and playing to people's strengths is good. So is what I do. So having a wealth of knowledge isn't going to hurt you, but after a while, it's not going to be. People may get stagnant there, but that's just as far as like what someone with experience would have a leg up, but I also have no problem trying to train people. People always have that attitude. I've worked with people who are like, I could train anyone and blah, 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 blah. You can't. There's people who just suck.
Yeah, that's true.
Who don't have the motor skills or don't have the visual space comprehension and can't see with their mind's eye. It's just like the whole thing where if like you shut your eyes and you could hit your two fingers together, that's because your body's aware of where it is in time and space. And if you're boning stuff out that you can't see, then you're not going to be good at that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, I could see it being, it's not necessarily going to be a benefit working for me. Like, because I only have one other cutter working with me and they only cut two days a week. The rest of the time they're the cleaner. But like, I could see going into a cut and wrap facility where at places I have worked, we would want that, but we also just treat it like the military. We break it down. We want to know that you can know how to hold a knife, but you need to be able to produce product efficiently.
It seems like when you're unskilled and new to this profession, you got to be really scrappy and use any tool at your disposal to leverage yourself into jobs. And whether that's learning how to sharpen your own knives or whether that's, okay, here's a program that I can get grant for. It's right here available to me. Might as well go for it. Like, you're going to suck for a long time in this field. Even if you've been working at a shop for 5 years, like that may or may not help you get a job with Travis, or it may or may not help you get a job at another place because each shop is so individual. So I would say like you got to leverage any tool at your disposal that's at your fingertips in order to just be hireable. And it may work against you or it may work for you. So I think that's a good point that you're saying that like going to culinary school or going to a program may actually work against you. That's a good thing to point out because each job is so specific. As far as my current place of work, it seems like people skills would actually be like the most important variable. Like there's such a shortage of meat cutters in this area. They don't fucking care if you're a good meat cutter. Like you're going to like crash and burn. They'll hire you and you're going to crash and burn unless you have people skills. You could be the dopest meat cutter and come into that shop and you're going to crash and burn if you don't have people skills. So, man, I think just every job situation is different. My boss often says he can't find anyone who even knows how to like hold a knife or sharpen a knife in this region. So if you come in, like hey, I've been to culinary school, they'll be like, all right, well, shoot, well, that's something. I'll try you out. Yeah, and then whether you're successful on the job or not, I think is going to be people skills and what Travis said about your just basic ability to learn motor skills. The fact is you could still have great people skills and you could still always suck as a meat cutter if you're not like kinetically capable, if you're not like able to do the fine motor skills and the gross motor skills necessary for this skill.
Yeah, and talking about like culinary school, like my brother-in-law, who's a butcher, put himself through culinary school through a community college, and now he's like a private chef in Jackson Hole making six figures. And he's like, there are culinary school success stories.
Oh, for sure.
But I view it that like if you get someone, if you have grants, do it. That's the bottom line. But because you're not going to lose anything. But if you end up having, like, I didn't go to college, and because of that, I'm not in debt. Like, I worked in a butcher shop, a high end butcher shop in Los Angeles, and every fucking person I met who went to culinary school, or who was going to culinary school, or was working in the industry had these dreams of grandeur of what, like, opening their own place, being successful, being a celebrity or a personality. And,
right.
And I'll tell you, there's a culinary program in every fucking city, and how many restaurants close a year in those cities? What, like, is it a third of them make it, David, or something like that, past their first year?
I think in the first 2 years, it's something like 39 or 40% of places go on to the second year or something like that. I mean, I'm in the middle of that right now, and that feels like a very true figure.
Yeah, and so, like, if you have free culinary school and you want to be a meat cutter, or there's a free meat program or whatever, fucking do it. But if you want to open up a shop and you want to, like, just map out what you want to do and understand the market, or what's realistic for you.
Yeah.
Like James Brown says, we all can't be James Brown. That's why I got to stay in school, kids.
I think there's a big difference between a community college, 9-month program that you can get grant money for, and going to like Michigan State University's meat lab and spending $40,000 a year on an egg degree where you're going to cut meat on a theoretical level for like 6 months or less.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go in over $100,000 in debt to learn how to cut meat.
No.
You know what I mean? I also quickly wanted to say congratulations on getting married and having your pretty new daughter, and we're sorry about the car accident. That's terrible. But there's lots of places in this industry for people of all kinds of ability types.
Yeah, man. I think, when I was starting out, I had no idea about the spectrum of options available to me, which hopefully this podcast and what Travis and David, you guys talk about, are just getting people aware of all the different niches you can get into. Like when I was starting out, I was like, Whole Foods, grocery store, meat cutter was like sort of the only track I even knew about. So when I got derailed from that through like bad luck and bad whatever, I was like, oh, fuck, well, I guess I'm not going to be a meat cutter. I had no idea that there's like actually a lot of different ways you can kind of like come around this thing. So, and that's something you guys talked about plenty before. If you get a closed door at one shop, then start applying at custom shops, to start applying at slaughterhouses, look into what, maybe you will get hired right away in a grocery store, but you won't get hired at other places. I think that was the most useful piece, is to try all the different options, and then kind of triage based on what is actually available to you, triage kind of what the best choice for you might be, or what the only choice for you may be. So if this guy has that open door of this culinary school and he can get it paid for, maybe that's his best choice as of right now, or I think I'm just being redundant at this point. You guys get what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, the thing with careers in life is that life is surprisingly long. That like people don't realize that like people say life is short, and it is at the end. But like right now, when you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, you still have 40 years ahead of you. You still have more time than you've been alive ahead of you. And people change careers multiple times. And the thing about the meat industry is you're able to jump. Like, you can work in many aspects of it, and a lot of it's transferable. And also in the food industry, like my My brother used to manage a slaughterhouse, and then he ended up running a grind program for a smokehouse for a completely different business. And now he's a quality control at a yogurt factory. He doesn't pick up a knife, and a lot of people want that, like, well, I'm a butcher and I'm all this stuff. I'm glad that I have the skills I do, but honestly, if I'm going to make more money doing something else, I personally am probably going to do that, because I need to just do what's best for my family. And I also don't like killing myself like every day a week.
Yeah, something I don't know if we want to talk about right now, if you want to move on to another question, or if I could just ask about something that you said earlier about, you've got one other cutter. Can I ask a somewhat relevant question? You got one other cutter, and you think that, maybe certain types of people with certain ability levels coming into your job might not work because they would get stagnant quickly.
Yes.
Something you and I talked about the other night, and I'd like to just kind of bring it up, because I think this is probably something that a lot of people, whether it be shop managers or supervisors or business owners or just workers in general, the problem of, I've been at this station for too long. I want to do something else. I'm bored with my job. I'm not going to do a good job anymore. I'm stagnant.
Yeah.
How does everybody handle that as a manager? Because that's a really difficult. If you're not equipped with the skills to deal with that particular phenomenon, I think that it's a really difficult thing to navigate, because if you live in an area like I do, where there's not very many workers at all, people that are willing to work.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, I'm going to lose somebody if I don't give them what they want, and then I'm shorthanded. Do you guys feel like talking about that?
Yeah, I could talk about that. So personally, when I only need to work with one other cutter, and that person does X, Y, and Z when they're on the block, and then I need to run equipment the rest of the week, and I treat it like, if I'm looking for a butcher, that person will cut meat. They will do this. But you're a team member, and everything as a team needs to get done. Mm-hmm. Now, being a member of the team, the fucking quarterback isn't going to be the nose guard. That you need to do the role you're good at. You need to play to people's strengths. And when I hire what I would consider entry level, is I say that there's no expectations. Like, if I'm hiring someone to do packaging, or I'm hiring someone to make sausage, at no point in my online ad does it say that they're a butcher, that they're going to be cutting meat or anything like that. That they have no. So I bypass all these people who have this romanticized idea about it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, because of the way unemployment is right now and what we're paying people, if people feel they're being passed over or whatever, then they could express those beliefs. And if we can't come to an understanding, I may suggest that it's not the best place for them, because the bottom line is, I'm not in the making that person happy business. I'm in the getting my product in as many fucking stores as I can. If my company makes money, then everyone who works for my company will make more money. It's the bottom line. And as shitty as it sounds, like that, that's just how it has to be. And that's why you can find our product in over 450 outlets.
So basically what you do is you stress to these people that have, that sort of attitude, like, listen, you're a team member. This is your role. You need to play it. We can talk about filling holes as they appear over time.
Yeah.
As of right now, this is your job. And if you don't like it, then find another job.
Yeah. And I do a lot of cross training and stuff, because when people are sick, I don't want to be dead in the water and shit like that. Mm-hmm. But it also, it took me a while. Like, when I first started working at the place I work now, there was some resistance because I came in higher than everyone else. I pretty much came in at as their supervisor. And some people didn't like it. Some people felt passed over and all that. It took me a year to trim that fat. Now, like, I don't have to worry about any of that shit because the people I have working for me, it's not even a possibility of what they think about. It's not like they're workers. They're, you know, they're working all together to achieve a common goal. Like a fucking assembly line.
I know I'm not a manager. I was trained as a manager at one point, but I'm no longer in that position. But it seems like having these just simple, and you tell me if I'm wrong, having these simple conversations with your employees that can go a long way. So if someone's expressing something to you and you're offhandedly sort of being like, oh, you can't do that. I can see that lead. We can't do that as a company. I can see that leading to employee dissatisfaction, employee unhappiness, and then employees quitting.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, it seems like it goes a long way if you sit down with them and have these job dialogues. And tell me if you guys do this as managers at certain intervals that an employee can then rely on. Or if something comes up, it'd be like, hey, let's just sit down and have a job dialogue. Let's talk about this. Outside of the cut room, that's a big one for me, is sitting down outside of the cut room, because a lot of shit gets said in the cut room while you're working. Mm-hmm. And you can never tell if that's actually something that the employee means or feels strongly about, or you can never tell if that's something that the boss actually means or feels strongly about, because when it's in the cut room, things can be kind of flippant. But then when you sit down in a job dialogue type situation, man, I'm having trouble speaking today. Job dialogue type situation, I feel like a lot of clarity can come through, where Travis or David can be like, I'm going to throw you a bone. I'm going to try to meet you halfway. This is what I can do, and this is what I can't do, and explain it to them, because these are the numbers, and these are the goals we have to meet on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever. This is what I can do, and this is what I can't do. Those type of things, I feel like employees really get that. They're like, well, fuck. Okay, he's meeting me halfway. Okay, I can deal with that. I'll be able to do this whatever thing once a month, and either that's good enough for me or that's not good enough for me, and then they can make that decision about whether they're going to leave the company or not. But this whole like employee satisfaction, employee morale thing, it is pretty huge, and you guys have a lot more experience as managers. I think that if I was a manager, I would make it a point to do these job dialogues just to keep my thumb on top of clearing up whatever I can clear up. Morale-wise, can go a long way.
I don't know. We used to call it processing. And when I worked retail, that like if you wanted to talk something, like, all right, let's go process and talk about feelings. I fucking hate talking about feelings. I don't want people to have animosities and stuff like that. But one of my biggest fucking pet peeves is when I ask someone something simple and they ask me why. Or they'll be like, oh, I was thinking about this, and I'm not looking for subservient employees or none of that, but it's just like a lot of times things don't have to be a discussion. I say this every once in a while, and it's a total dick move, but I'll just say, oh, could you do this? Well, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking for feedback. And then like when there is time, I'll talk to him and explain it, but like when you're in the moment and like you have 8 hours of production, the time to have those conversations is never right then.
This one's from Rich Scultetti. He says, I'm new to your podcast. In your first question and answers podcast, episode 2, you mentioned operating a custom exempt shop. Would you please elaborate what that means? I currently make sausages and dry-aged subprimals for my own personal consumption. Thank you. So I think maybe as Rich goes through the episodes, he's eventually going to get to the custom exempt stuff. But it's not a bad idea for us to just kind of have a little bit of give it to them in a nutshell, a little explanation for our new listeners and maybe people that just kind of forgot.
Yeah. So Ryan, you worked in custom for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. The custom niche. Let's see. You guys did a great job on that custom exempt podcast. Or episode.
So, what's the difference between a USDA inspected plant and a custom exempt plant, and the capabilities for which you can merchandise product and who you can sell it to and all that stuff?
Yeah, let's see. There's a lot of ways you can talk about the differences here. but let's see if I can, shooting from the hip, most of the customers for a custom exempt processing shop are going to be farmers that are selling whole carcass or halves or quarters, etc., directly to a customer, a third-party customer. And so the farmer raises an animal and then he direct markets to a clientele that wants to buy meat in bulk. And then that farmer often will hire the custom shop to both kill and cut the animal into steaks and roasts, etc., based on a cut sheet that the third-party customer provides. All that is wrapped and frozen at the custom shop and then picked up by that third-party customer. What am I missing here?
No, that sounds about right.
State inspected versus government inspected. Yep. There's a lot of, as far as how the actual job looks, there's a lot we could say about that as a cutter or as a wrapper. But I was trying to just provide a general overview.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, at the USDA inspected plants, you've got the government guy there, watches the slaughter, watches the stun, watches the dressing, watches the evisceration, inspects the carcass, and then stamps it, right? You get that USDA stamp. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the custom shop, do you actually get a state stamp out there in Washington?
Well, I was in a custom shop in Oregon, and we did not have a stamp.
Okay. So it's the same process at the custom exempt places, but there's no government inspector, so the meat can't be sold across state lines. Mm-hmm. You cannot be sold in retail establishments whatsoever. There's a very small, in some states, there's a very small percentage of your total sales that can be sold wholesale, but in some states, none of that product can be sold to restaurants or institutions at wholesale. Some states you could sell custom exempt meat at a farmer's market or off of your own farm store, off of your own land. But the majority of states, the animal has to be slaughtered USDA in order to be processed in a state inspected shop, which is still then just falls under retail exempt status. But there still has to be the stamp on that initial slaughtered carcass.
Because you said that's most states has to look like that?
Most states do. There's a couple different ones. I was just corrected by somebody on the internet on a forum, and I think
someone corrected you on the internet?
Yeah. Daily, but this particular time, somebody down south, there's a state where they've got way more lax laws that would make all of our lives way sweeter if everybody had it. But I know the state inspector. This probably happened to you guys all the time in Oregon. The state inspector can come in and still inspect. Even the USDA can actually come in.
They can't do shit though.
I don't know how that works, because I know this guy that our inspector was telling me he went into a custom shop and was inspecting carcasses. So I don't know if he was moonlighting or what that is, but they found a bunch of hair and fecal all over him.
So here the USDA could just inform the state inspector.
Maybe that's what the deal is.
But they really can't do anything. Now, that being said, let me tell you about the Corona. All right, so Corona, California, inland, Los Angeles. I was working for this processing facility, and we got a call for some roasters, and so we decided to slaughter some coonies, right? So
little small pigs.
Yeah, so I have them in a dog crate in my Subaru.
Teeny pigs.
And I take them, and let's just say the owner of who I was killing these animals for, his name's Mamas Meller, and he owns a restaurant called the UK Laundry.
Mamas Meller, I like that.
Yeah. So I go to this, my boss tells me, take him to the company. And I've never been there before. And I go there, and I'm driving around. I'm like, where the fuck is this slaughterhouse? And I'm in the middle of a residential area of Corona, and like there's houses everywhere, nice houses, and then all of a sudden there's a couple acres, and then this one house, and then this brick building that is, I have no idea how old it is, and there's some coolers off to the side, and we park, and there's it was a combination goose farm, pig farm, goat farm, beef farm, puppy mill.
Whoa.
Like in parakeets and like all these other type of birds. And it was, the pigs were being fed, slop from the viscera and stuff like that. And just like, it was not the best farming practices, but I'm not here to talk about their farm practices. And the smells were very rich. I'm going to talk about what I experienced when I went inside this facility. So I get off. This guy, the only white guy working there, approaches me. He's wearing board shorts, slaughter boots, and an apron, and nothing else. And he says, takes the coonies from me. They're in dog crates, and then writes me a ticket, and then asks me for $60. And I gave it to him, and then
$60 for how many head? 5 head?
3 head.
3 head.
Yeah. And then he takes them, and like he'll be like, all right, I'll be a couple minutes. And he's like, do you want to watch? And I'm like, sure. And I go into this area and there's a pin system where he takes the pigs, and it's just an assembly line. You just drop your animals off. You get a ticket. It's like a laundry. When your animals are done, you get that ticket. You get your animals. And I'm on this kill floor surrounded by a lot of people from different cultures. Who go there, they'll buy a goat. They'll go there, they'll buy a pig. They'll go there. People who are buying their animals and bringing some animals, but everything that's being slaughtered is being purchased right there from these people. A lot of them had restaurant-affiliated clothes on that would indicate that this is not for their personal use.
Yeah.
And so animals would get knocked. You would see it, and we're standing on this kill floor, and it's just everyone's waiting around. It's a giant open room. It's just one big room, the size of like a half basketball court or something like that.
I'm picturing like the DMV here, where there's like all these people sitting there with the ticket.
Oh, I got pictures of it that I've acquired online because they have one sign that says no cameras. And then so you're waiting there, and you're just standing there. It's one open room. Your animal goes through a chute, goes into a scalder. And this is where I learned that you could scald a goat. You could scald a calf.
What?
Yeah. And you could scald a pig. So like with no order, no species separation, they're scalding these animals, and they're skinning some. And then, so I saw them scald some veal, then a pig, then a goat, then another pig, and then my little pigs came out. And if you want your stuff, you can get your stuff cut there too. And they have a cooler, but they were doing hot cutting, and they had these like on the same kill floor. They had people only had one boning knife. These Spanish guys who were super fucking fast at hot boning. They were just breaking whole beef in using only a knife, and then tossing them to these giant 4-quarter butcher boy saws with no guards or whatsoever, and just like hand cutting the steaks, where they put their hand on one side of the blade and the other, and just pushing like that to hand cut steaks, and then just wrapping it in thank you bags that the people brought. So if you got if you bought a beef there, you supplied your own bags, and then you would help them wrap it, and then they would just move on, and then you tip them. And this whole process, like I saw them break down a beef in like under 5 minutes. It was fucking insane. Like some of the fastest butchers I've ever seen, like doing the craziest shit slaughtering I've ever seen too.
Do you think after this episode they'll be able to expect a visit from the state, or is that just an entity that exists?
I think it just exists. I hope nothing gets rid of it. I think it's the most beautiful place I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that there's retail establishments that were whole carcass butcher shops in Los Angeles at the time that received carcasses from there and sold it to the general public.
Oh.
Awesome.
Jolene, I'm begging of you, please don't take my man.
All right, meatheads, that's going to do it for this episode of the Meat Block Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. It's always fun when the three of us are able to get together, even if it is electronically, and riff with one another. It's very difficult with schedules to make things line up, but I'm glad that it did. And we will continue to push for this to happen as well. I know this is a format that people enjoy, and it's one that I really enjoy doing. And if you want to get a hold of one of us, like Brian, he is at Gather and Break on Instagram. David is at A Farm Butcher on Instagram. And I am at American Butcher on Instagram and Facebook. And on Facebook, look for the icon or avatar with someone standing up on a gate, not a picture of a steak. Seriously, fuck that guy. And if you want to get a hold of us as a show, you could email us at themeatblockpodcast@gmail.com. You could tweet us at themeatblockpod or Instagram, which is really the best way, besides Facebook, at themeatblock. Our Facebook group is The Meat Block. You could join, you could be a part of the conversation. A lot of great stuff happening over there. And if you're looking for ways to support the show, there are two ways to do that. You could use the hashtag TheMeatBlock or tag us online. And then the second way is to open up the Apple Podcast app or whatever podcast device you use, type in The Meat Block, whatever rating system they have, give us the highest rating on that, and leave a comment. That would really greatly be appreciated. Our intro was Ring the Bell. Our outro music is Dolly Parton, Jolene, one of my favorite songs of all time. If you enjoyed this show, please tell a friend. And we hope to see you or hope you join us again next week. And until then, keep your knife sharp and live in the margin.